Capcom.
Greetings everyone old and new, welcome to Haseo Reviews! Have you ever suddenly had $1,400 burning a hole in your pocket and an urge to spend $300 of that on a single game that isn't even in mint condition? No? Just me?
Mega Man Legends! One of my all-time favorite video games, the first installment in the cult classic Legends sub-series of the Mega Man franchise, and Mega Man's first foray into the world of 3D gaming. I reviewed this back in the very first episode of Haseo Reviews back in 2017, and then again last year during my brief stint in Hell. While it didn't sell massively well, it apparently sold enough to warrant its own series. Then again, this was in an era when Capcom seemed to not care whether or not games sold at least 1 million copies to decide whether or not they're destined to the same limbo that games like Okami and Remember Me live in. While Mega Man Legends was released in 1997, it wouldn't be until 2000 that the world would see Mega Man Legends 2. Everyone who's aware of this series always talks about it as if it's a duology, but in reality, a third game exists. Released in between Legends 1 and 2, was set before the events of Legends 1, and also holds the honor of being the first Mega Man game to not feature Mega Man at all in its story. Introducing the Misadventures of Tron Bonne. Here's the part where I'd usually delve into the development history behind the game, but I couldn't find anything of note about the Misadventures of Tron Bonne, other than the fact that the Mega Man Legends 2 demo included in the Japanese release was completely different from the one included in the international release. The Japanese version was more of a tech demo, unrelated to what happens in Legends 2, more akin to a public beta, while the international demo just features 3 playable segments from the final game. Neat. Set before the events of Mega Man Legends 1, The Misadventures of Tron Bonne opens with the Gesellschaft, the Bonne's giant battleship from Legends 1, just being completed. Since it cost Teasel a lot of money to build this behemoth of an airship, he bought a map from a junk store owner that supposedly leads to the legendary treasure of the Nakai ruins, Diana's Tear. Tron wants to come with him on the mission, but Teasel politely refuses, presumably not wanting his younger sister to be put in any danger, and reassures her that he can handle everything and... Baboo! That ain't Bonne Bonne's voice. Okay, brief tangent here. Misadventures of Tron Bonne features the exact same voice cast that was in Mega Man Legends, including Carolee Larson as Tron Bonne, and Rob Smith as Teasel Bonne. Rest in piss, you diddler fuck. With the glaring exception of Ikoue Otani as Bonne Bonne in the English dub. She still voices him in the Japanese version, which makes it even more baffling that she was replaced by someone who sounds absolutely nothing like her for a character that communicates by saying one word over and over. It'd be like if Pikachu, also voiced by Otani, was suddenly replaced in the English dub of Pokemon by me. Teasel eventually meets up with Bonne Bonne at the entrance to the Nakai ruins, but is ambushed by Glide, a mercenary for billionaire Lex Loth who has come to collect on Teasel's debt to Loth. Teasel obviously doesn't have the money, so Glide decides to capture him and Bonne Bonne to work off their debt. Back on the Gesellschaft, Tron and the Servbots lose contact with the Gustav, the mech that Teasel was piloting, and send a Drock to investigate its last known position, where they find the Servbot squad that accompanied Teasel, who inform them of Teasel and Bonne Bonne's kidnapping. Tron and the Servbots search around the Gesellschaft and find the receipt for the loan that Teasel took from Loth to build his flagship, a whopping 1 million zenny. Determined to save her brothers, Tron decides to do anything and everything she can to collect enough money to repay Teasel's debt and buy his and Bonne Bonne's freedom. From here, due to the game's choose-your-own-progression order style, the main plot kind of stops for a while a group of smaller stories occur within the different levels. I won't cover most of them because I'd be here all day, but a few of note are the Uncle Dig subplot of the Dig Out missions, where Tron and the Servbots find notes left by the legendary digger Uncle Dig, chronicling his search for the Elixir of Youth. After meeting him in person in the 3rd level of the Dig-Outs and collecting all 3 crystals linked to the Elixir of Youth, Tron and the Servbots discover that the Elixir of Youth is actually just beer. Sorry, root beer, since we can't have alcohol references in a kids game in the US. It's then revealed that Uncle Dig was dead all along, and what we had met was his ghost, and the reveal of the Elixir's true nature allows him to pass on peacefully. The other subplot of note happens in the trio of bank robbery missions, where each one ends with a boss battle against the hapless police officer Denise, who faces increasingly humiliating defeats each time at the hands of Tron, culminating in her getting chewed out by the captain. Keep her in mind. After finally collecting 1 million zenny, Tron confronts Loth in his ship, where he claims that she owes interest on the original loan, demanding an additional 2 million zenny. Tron rightfully calls bullshit on this, and Loth has Glide chuck her and the servbots out. With Tron gone, Loth gloats about how whatever he's scheming is coming along perfectly. Tron refuses to accept defeat, and sets out to gather the 2 million zenny that Loth demanded from her. After gathering that, Tron finds out that Loth is performing suspicious activity in a warehouse at Premiki Harbor. Tron confronts him once again with the money he wanted, but he now claims that she owes interest on her interest. When she refuses to put up with this bullshit anymore, Loth has Glide capture her. After she's hauled off, it's revealed that all along, Loth has been trapping diggers and pirates in never-ending debt so he can force them into slave labor for his plan to take over the world. Tron is thrown in prison, where she's reunited with Teasel and Bonne. Teasel reveals that Loth has been kidnapping his debtors and forcing them to dig up the sleeping Colossus, a giant, invincible reaverbot powered by a large golden refractor. Tron places a distress call to the Gesellschaft, ordering the servbots to initiate a rescue plan she had in case this kind of situation happened. Most of the servbots are too afraid of what will happen if they fail to rescue the Bonnes, but the servbot that the player chose as their favorite, which in my case was number 35, volunteers to lead this rescue mission. After raiding the prison site, number 35 finds and rescues Tron and Teasel, and everyone decides that to get revenge on Loth, they'll steal the Colossus and its refractor before Loth can use it. They make their way to the Colossus's hangar, where they're ambushed once again by Glide. After a battle with him, Bonne RKOs his mech to prevent him from destroying his siblings. Glide makes his escape, but before the Bonnes can celebrate their victory, Loth activates the Colossus, which causes the prison to collapse. The Bonnes narrowly make it back to the Gesellschaft and launch an attack on the Colossus, but it's completely ineffective. Loth launches a counterattack which severely damages the Gesellschaft, knocking Teasel overboard and severely injuring Tron, who tasks number 35 with battling the Colossus himself, accompanied by a group of fellow servbots who volunteered to help him stop Loth. After the Colossus is defeated, number 35, piloting the Gustav, makes his escape as the Colossus sinks into the sea. Loth begs the Bonnes to save him from drowning in the middle of the ocean, and Tron accepts, with her own ulterior motive. We cut to the police station, where Denise has been relegated to desk work due to her repeated failures, and contemplates whether she's cut out to be a police officer. Just then, she finds Loth and Glide tied up in her office when the captain enters to see two criminals on their most wanted list, seemingly arrested by her most incompetent officer, and congratulates her. Outside the station, it's revealed that Tron was the one who dropped Loth and Glide off. Tron and Teasel fly back to the Gesellschaft, and Teasel notices how much Tron has matured and finally agrees to let her go on missions. In a post-credit scene, the Bonnes hold a party to celebrate their victory, and Tron congratulates number 35, who just finished trash duty, for saving the day. However, number 35 reveals that he accidentally threw out the one-of-a-kind golden refractor along with the trash, infuriating Tron and ending the game on a comedic note. The story is less ambitious in its scope than the one seen in Mega Man Legends, and features a notedly more lighthearted tone. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, though, because we get some much welcome moments that flesh out Tron's character and the familial bond of the Bonne family. We got shades of this in Legends 1, but Misadventure shows us that Teasel tries to make sure his family isn't worried about him, and Tron has more depth to her character than just being a prideful tsundere. I feel like keeping things simple was the correct choice here, although I would have liked to get more backstory on how the Bonnes became pirates in the first place. The graphics here haven't seen a noticeable upgrade from Mega Man Legends, but still look appealing for the era. Since you spend most of the game piloting various mechs instead of traveling on foot, the environments and enemies are noticeably scaled to fit whatever contraption Tron is controlling at the time. Cutscenes, for the most part, are done using character portraits overlaid on the in-game scenery, further playing up the more lighthearted, cartoony nature and allowing more freedom for the characters to express detailed reactions to their situations. The voice acting is just as delightfully hammy as what was featured in Mega Man Legends, if not more so thanks to the inclusion of characters like Loth and Glide, who don't just chew the scenery, they devour it every second they're on screen. The music is upbeat and energetic for the most part, with several tracks featuring recurring melodies from other parts of the soundtrack, a technique I'm an absolute sucker for in video game soundtracks. Rather than building off what Mega Man Legends established, Misadventures kind of sidesteps that by featuring multiple gameplay styles, which was a common tactic at that period in gaming to add variety to your game. Not counting the tutorial level and the final level, we have 6 different missions broken up into 3 levels each, with each mission either featuring its own unique gameplay style or a variant on the traditional Mega Man Legends gameplay. Before the game even begins, it becomes clear that the developers listened to feedback about the controls in Mega Man Legends being somewhat unintuitive for 3D action games of the era, and offered the option to enable an auto-target system and the then-standard tank controls as an alternative to the Mega Man Legends control scheme. I didn't see a need to use these, as I found the default control scheme to be easier to use, but it's great that the option is here for those who just can't come to grips with the default controls. The tutorial level puts the player in control of the Gustav battle mech, accompanied by a squad of 6 surfbots. The Gustav can run, turn, jump, shoot, and manually lock onto enemies just like in Mega Man Legends, but features 2 new moves, a grab move that allows the Gustav to pick up objects and throw them, and the beacon bomb, which is a core mechanic of the rest of the game. By pressing and holding the R2 button, the Gustav enters a targeting mode, and pressing the square button fires a beacon bomb that directs your surfbots where to go. Its uses can range from interacting with objects, to attacking enemies, to gathering treasure for you, with more specific uses tailored to individual mission types. In between missions, you can freely explore the Gesellschaft and talk to all 40 of the surfbots. Talking to surfbots mostly gives you some flavor text, but occasionally rewards the player with items that can be given to other surfbots to unlock their unique talents. For example, building energy tanks for the Gustav to increase its health, or changing its paint scheme. The Gesellschaft is broken up into multiple rooms. First we have HQ, where you can save your game, send surfbots on scouting missions to find rare items, and launch missions. The lab is where you'll develop new weapons, healing items, armor, and health upgrades for the Gustav, and where Tron dons a cute scientist outfit. The storage room is where you can either appraise items to find out what you can do with them, or sell them for zenny. The cafeteria houses a surfbot who, when his unique skill is unlocked, gives you hints on how to unlock other surfbot skills. Similarly, the meeting room has a surfbot that changes the Gustav's colors, and a surfbot that explains mechanics of the game to you. The gym is home to 2 training minigames, a target minigame that increases a surfbot's attack power, and a food serving minigame that increases their speed. New rooms are added as you progress through the game, which include Tron's room, where Tron can take a nap while the player's favorite surfbot goes to a casino to play one of 2 quick gambling minigames, bingo and high and low. I lost at both of them. Teasel's room houses a single surfbot who gives you an item. The torture room has a minigame where you punish lazy surfbots with 3 types of torture devices. The deck houses another item, and lastly, the engine room also has an item. It's a neat feature that you get to explore the interior of the Gesellschaft, but ultimately, only about half the rooms have anything worth noting in them. I would have preferred if all of them, at the very least, had more than just a single thing to do in each of them. Selecting the mission option takes you to the mission map, where you can only choose one of 4 missions at first, with 2 added after repaying the first loan debt. Mission 1 sees Tron and the surfbots attempting to rob a bank while fighting off the police on their way there, and causing as much destruction and mayhem as they possibly can along the way. Each level of this mission starts the player either at the wrong location entirely, an animal hospital, or in an area where she has to find an alternate route to the bank. The gameplay here once again features the Mega Man Legends controls, but is set up more like an arcade game, where you have a running tally of how much zenny you've gathered either by robbing houses or defeating enemies. Each of these levels ends with a boss fight against Officer Denise, who progressively gets stronger each time as she uses more and more drastic measures in her attempt to defeat Tron. Mission 2 is a puzzle game where you pilot the Gustav tank. There's no combat here, you move on a grid, you only have 1 surfbot at your disposal, and you're tasked with transporting 4 green crates to your boat before you can move on to the next of the 3 rounds. However, to spice things up a bit, the Gustav tank has a limited amount of lifts it can perform, it can only move 10 spaces at a time when holding a movable crate, and different crates have different properties. Green crates are your goal, but each round also has a bonus red crate that's completely optional, but gives you a substantial increase to how much money you earn from the mission. Wooden crates can be moved freely without a step limit and can be placed in the water to form makeshift bridges, allowing you to create your own shortcuts. Lastly, metal crates can't be carried, but you can still rotate in place while holding on to one to place it somewhere else, as well as place them in the water like wooden crates. If you make a mistake, you can pause the game and either undo your last move, or if you've completely screwed the pooch, restart the round from the beginning. Mission 3 is labeled as an RPG, but it's more like a first-person dungeon crawler, where rather than interacting with NPCs and objects or fighting enemies yourself, since this time Tron uses a remote-controlled drone called the Finkel, you make liberal use of beacon bombs to order your trio of servbots around. Your goal is to solve puzzles, find treasure and items, and ultimately reach the end of each of the 3 cave systems to battle a boss and collect each of the 3 Aurora stones. This is a really nice break from the usual gameplay styles for multiple reasons. I love all the different diggers you meet throughout your travels, like the hot-blooded Dance, the aforementioned Uncle Dig, the unpredictable Pearl, and the twin Zig and Zag. Level 1 is relatively simple and serves as a long tutorial for mechanics that you'll use in levels 2 and 3, ending with a boss fight against a large Reaver bot similar to the tutorial boss from Mega Man Legends 1, but far more aggressive. While the Finkel is capable of a pathetic ram attack, the combat sections here force you to rely on your team of servbots to take out enemies and bosses for you, since they're indestructible while you very much are not. Levels 2 and 3 ramp up the difficulty of the puzzles you need to solve to progress and feature more combat sections, including a handful of Reaver bot nests and a few encounters with the bird bots, Glide's equivalent of the servbots. Starting with level 2, one of your servbots pilots a small drill tank used for combat and drilling through cracked walls. Another standout of level 2 is a mandatory quiz minigame where Zig and Zag test your memory of what you've completed so far in levels 1 and 2, with them opening locked doors corresponding to how many questions you can answer correctly in a row. It's nothing too brain-taxing, apart from the question of how many times you had to drill to reach their room. After answering all their questions correctly, they asked me if I had fun, and I answered no because I hate quizzes. Level 3 tests you on everything you've learned in levels 1 and 2, culminating in a gauntlet of traps you've previously encountered that you have to individually disarm in order to reach the boss room. Overall, this is my second favorite mission type after the bank robberies. Mission 4 has Tron exploring the Nakai ruins that Teasel was searching for in order to claim the Diana's Tear treasure, which automatically rewards the player with 1 million zenny. This plays more or less like one of the dungeon segments from Mega Man Legends, but with the addition of treasure chests and nooks that only the servbots can access. You can easily grind this mission for zenny if you need help affording the more expensive Gustav upgrades, and most of the pieces needed to build weapons and armor are found here. You aren't getting through this dungeon on your first try, since about half of it is inaccessible without the bazooka weapon that you collect the necessary parts for here. At the mission briefing screen of any level where you control the normal Gustav, you can swap out the basic search cannon weapon for either the bazooka or a Gatling gun after you've built them. The bazooka is a bit misleading, as it fires more like a cannon than a rocket launcher, with its projectiles moving in an arc. It fires slowly, but deals massive damage against enemies and can destroy cracked walls. After eventually reaching the end, you face off against a Reaverbot boss that's honestly pretty obnoxious to battle. You're supposed to clog its nostrils with your servbots to make it open its mouth and expose its weak point, but first of all, you have this row of smaller, indestructible Reaverbots that solely exist to get in the way of your beacon bombs, and second, the hitbox of the weak point isn't exactly clear. I had to keep adjusting my position over and over until I found a sweet spot that consistently made my shots actually damage it. Eventually, though, it went down and I claimed my sweet, sweet treasure. After you pay off the first 1 million zenny loan, 2 more missions open up. The first is the farm mission, which is similar to the bank mission, but rather than ransacking a town to rob a bank, you're raiding a farm to steal all of its animals. You have to use your servbots to grab the animals and carry them back to your truck while fighting off mechs piloted by Glide's bird bots. After a mech is destroyed, you can actually have your servbots carry the bird bots back to the truck so you can sell them as well, which is absolutely hilarious in a morbid way. If the truck gets destroyed, you instantly fail the mission, but that's rarely a risk outside of the boss fights at the end of each level. For the rest of the game, I ended up using the Gatling gun attachment, which has a high rate of fire, but its individual shots are weaker than the default search cannon weapon. Level 1 has you stealing pigs, which the servbots just need to catch and carry back to the truck. Level 2 has you going after cows, which the servbots have to slowly ride back to the truck, and the cows attack you if you accidentally shoot them. To make this more challenging, this level introduces drones that are indestructible when they're not activated, and they only activate when a servbot grabs a target, automatically charging after it to disrupt its travel back to the truck. Lastly, Level 3 has you targeting horses, which you need to corner in order for a servbot to ride it back to the truck, otherwise it'll simply knock any servbots that try to jump on it away. Each level ends with a boss fight, first against a swarm of birdbot mechs, then against a mech armed with a powerful hammer, then against both at once. I like these missions for their similarity to the bank robberies, but something I can't quite put my finger on just doesn't click with me here. If I had to guess, it's the lack of any kind of story here, compared to the fun banter between Tron and Denise at the end of each bank level. The last of the main mission types is Containers 2, which is essentially a hard mode version of the first batch of container missions. The same rules on limited lifts, limited steps, and crate types apply here, but rather than carrying the green crates back to the boat yourself, your surfbot pilots a forklift to carry it back for you when you guessed it, fire a beacon bomb at it. These ones are some major brain teasers, and unlike most of the other missions, I only felt the need to play the first level here because I don't enjoy these types of puzzles. With all 6 mission types covered, I have to say that this gameplay roulette approach to game design, rather than the primary focus on free-roaming exploration and dungeon exploration that Mega Man Legends had, fits Misadventures quite well. The Bonnes aren't diggers after all, they're pirates, so it makes sense that they'd rather ransack and pillage than explore ruins for treasure more often than not. The varied gameplay types keep everything consistently fresh, and since you're free to play any missions you want in any order you want, with the only requirement for progression through the main story being how much money you have, it leaves the player free to ignore gameplay types that they don't enjoy and just stick to the missions they find fun. For a prequel spin-off, it's arguably more accessible than the original Mega Man Legends, due to the multiple gameplay types and the gradual increase in difficulty between each level. Do you just want to play something that feels like Mega Man Legends? Stick to the bank, farm, and ruins missions and you'll be more than content. If you want something more brain-taxing, try out the containers and dig-out missions to fulfill your needs. The final stretch of the game is broken up into 2 segments. First, the favorite surfbot has to pilot the Gustav through Lodth's prison, fighting off bird bots along the way and investigating each cell they pass until they finally find the one housing the Bonnes. After that, Tron takes over piloting duties and you have to make your way to the center of the prison, where you have a pretty challenging duel with Glide, followed by the grand finale, the fight against the Colossus, which takes place entirely on its shoulders. This fight has 2 phases to it. First, you have to use your grab move and beacon bombs to rip out all the energy pylons powering the colossal robot. After it's powered down, you have your final encounter with the detached flying head of the Colossus, whose health bar is literally so massive that it doesn't even fit on the screen. It starts out just trying to ram you and occasionally shooting projectiles at you, but as its health gets gradually whittled down, it starts pulling off more and more deadly attacks. Just stay focused, preferably stocking up on E-bottles before you go to rescue the Bonnes, and you'll eventually wear it down, ending the game.
So, what do I think of this game overall? Well, honestly, it's one of my favorite games on the original PlayStation.
The Misadventures of Tron Bonne takes risks by throwing in so many wildly different gameplay types, but unlike many other games of the era that attempted a gameplay roulette, none of them feel out of place. The graphics are serviceable for the era, the voice acting, bootleg Bonne aside, is leagues better than what most late 90s video games offered, the music is spectacular, the difficulty is balanced nearly perfectly, and the choose-your-own progression approach it takes lets you play the game however you see fit. The Misadventures of Tron Bonne, despite it receiving fairly decent critical reviews, sold abysmally, which, combined with it not seeing any kind of re-release until 2015, and even then only in North America on the soon-to-be discontinued PS3 online store, has made it one of the most rare and valuable games for the PS1, easily fetching prices upwards of $300 for a used copy, let alone one that's complete. If you have to get this game, get it on the PS3 for $6 while you still can, because no game is worth that kind of ridiculous aftermarket price. Or just emulate it. Either way, I can wholeheartedly recommend The Misadventures of Tron Bonne for both Mega Man diehards and curious newcomers alike.
It's good to be back, folks. I'll be taking a small break from the Sonic Marathon so I don't burn myself out again, so please be patient if you're waiting for that Sonic Adventure video. In the meantime, why not check out one of the videos on screen somewhere around here right now? Also, subscribe and click the bell if you haven't already, and follow me on Twitter, at Haseo Reviews, to keep in touch with what I'm working on. I'll see you in the next one. Laters.